Okay, so the voice memo isn't working, the voice thing, so I'm just gonna say it. So CLA number 2, Education 301, Introduction to Education. The United States education. We're 29th in the race of education. We go to school 5 days a week from 8 to 3. And then it says weekly calendar is based on the agricultural work week. Um, and then we have private, public, and charter schools. Finland education is the number one in the race of education. They don't have any private schools. They start around 9 a.m. and end around 2 p.m. and they only go to school like 4 days a week. There's also no standardized testing. So, on standardized testing in the United States, there's an article by Crystal Lombardo in 2017 that says standardized tests allow for a reliable measurement of student success that isn't influenced by local factors. So it's just like whether they, like, it's a good way for us to tell whether they met the state standards. And then Finland is what often happens is that students will learn to cram just to pass a test, and teachers will be teaching with the sole purpose of students passing a test. Learning has been thrown out of the equation. That's honestly true in my experience because I just study to pass a test in high school, and I never learned anything until I got to college. So the educational work week for the United States, the 5 day school week tended to revolve around the schedule of the parents of the house. As soon as the father went to work, the children went to school. Also, as soon as the kids got home from school, the father gets home from work. In Finland, it tends to have shorter hours and less time in class, so the kids tend to be a little bit more independent, and it also gives them time to go outside and learn stuff in the real world, like nature exploration, like that kid that we saw in the video or that teacher that was explaining how kids can learn about bugs and stuff. And then I said this also gives the teacher more time to prepare for the class the following day because they're not focused on another task at hand. They're focused on just getting prepared for tomorrow. Job opportunities. There's more jobs in the United States, which basically, in my opinion, is because of how teachers are looked at. In the United States, it's looked at as an easy job, so it's nobody really wants to do it because you don't make any money. And then I also put the emergency degrees in the United States that people still have. And then for Finland, it's 10,000 plus applicants for only a couple spots. And that just weeds out the weaker educators and only leaves the responsible reliable ones. So it's a better overall educational pathway. And then effective educators. In the United States, you have to be mentally tough, and the reason why I say that is because of what we used to do called combat pay, where you'd be put into the quote unquote rough schools, and you get paid more. So you have to be mentally tough and prepared to do that. You also must care for the students, be student centered in your teaching techniques. You also have to follow the state curriculum to a T. There's no room for too much of independent studying. It's more let's just pass this year and move on to the next. And then it says that we talked about in class how you only had to do 180 hours of teaching per year. And then in Finland, student-centered learning and must be caring about students. I feel like that's like everywhere that you teach. It's not necessarily just in these two. And then you have to be spontaneous and go with the flow personality, and that's because the learning there is a little bit more independent, and they choose what they want to learn. And then I also put down that you have to do 600 hours of teaching per year, so they go to a lot of conferences, and they're constantly trying to better themselves, and that's why their educators are better than ours, on average at least. So curriculum planning in the United States, I took a quote from this federal education document, and it says that while there's no national curriculum in the United States, states, school districts, and national associations do require or recommend that certain standards be used to guide school instruction. In addition, federal law mandates that the state standards be developed and improved in order for states to receive federal assistance. So it's like a checks and balance system of like, yeah, if you want your money, you're gonna have to do what we want you guys to do. In Finland, it says that Finland wants students to develop projects that link learning in the different subjects, but also embraces real world learning and to help students with meaning making. And so basically, their whole philosophy is, yes, of course, you should learn like certain things, but we're gonna relate it to the real world so you can actually use it. Professionalism in the United States, I put it's just about the degree, so it's more like, and what I mean by that is going back to the emergency degrees, like you literally just need the degree. There's no sort of like, oh, are you really right for teaching or anything like that. It's more like, oh, cool, you have a degree, good enough for us, like throw you into the classroom. And then Finland, I said professionalism comes into the form of how you carry yourself and the degrees that you carry. Since there are hundreds and thousands of applicants, you are expected to be of the utmost responsibility and professionalism. So it's like, for like I mentioned before, the professionalism is part of like, oh, we're weeding out like the not so good educators, and we're only left with like the best of the best, like the 1% that are amazing. So there's not too much worry about professionalism in Finland. And then these are just my references. So I have one from 2017. I have an educational document. I have this article by Kristen Lombardo, and then I have this article from Mike Colagrossi. And that's my presentation. Thanks for listening.